So now, okay, now everybody should hear me, by the way. So let me see, I'm preparing here. Okay, great. Now it should work. And by the way, YouTube, the YouTube channel, we just added a subtitle. It's in English. Afterwards, I will add more languages, Spanish at least, and yeah. But however, I'm going to download the video, and for the paid subs on Substack, they will receive the video with subtitle then. So welcome to our test stream. That's very important one because I can save a lot of time just streaming in that way, and spend more time with research and also just to make some special reports related to crypto. What's going on behind the curtains? Actually, what can we expect from the market in the next weeks, month? Also related to the regulation, what's coming for sure. And we have the DOJ investigation related to Tether, CoinDesk, joined actually their court case. Something I would like to spend time just to check where are the risk and the potential impact to the market. Yeah. So let us start as usual with the wealth ratio. Maybe we should start here with the wealth ratio daily view, just to check if we are still on track or if my theory is invalidated. So hopefully everyone can see that. Great. Well, what we are seeing here is what I expected a little bit. First of all, our net flows are looking very, at the moment, bullish. But that's what I said several times in the past. Inflows, outflows are useful. Inflows, in my opinion, more than outflows. Because inflows can have a potential impact very soon. Okay, that means inflows, they are going to sell. Outflows doesn't have any impact anymore because they did the purchase already. Okay, so it had an impact in the past, but it's not going to have any impact in the future anymore. Anyway, outflows are very interesting. Maybe if these outflows are valid and not internal operations, like sometimes that happens to inflows as well. That would explain or give us an insight that whales are accumulating, for example. So what I'm doing with inflows and outflows is to recheck the information quality with, for example, entity changes. If I see that certain entities has less balances, for example, and I see big outflows that doesn't fit, that doesn't match. So I would say that's invalidated, maybe internal operations. So when people say, but Inspo, we have much more outflows. Yeah, that's maybe, but Inspo check this information with other sources to see the information quality of these outflows. I'm doing the same with the inflows, by the way. However, let us check here what's happened. I have said in January 24th, that was a little bit my prediction, that we are going to start a dead cat bounce in our downward trend, because that's what happened every time when the wealth ratio 30-day average is starting to decline, like it did here. Okay, that's actually much more just a decline, that's a dump. But however, that happens every time. Every time when they have started to rise their weights ratio 30-day average, that means they are sending tokens and generating sell pressure. They stopped, and the price action just became much more bearish afterwards. How is that possible? In my opinion, and that's of course a theory, but in my opinion, and that's showing here in different occasions, that happens because they send and accumulate tokens on the exchanges. And when they are ready, just for example, I mean, a dead cat bounce is nothing else than a fake rally. When they are ready, they start to dump hard. So that's still my expectations. Even if I would say I wasn't expecting such kind of move, okay, because that looks very hardcore. That's not the dead cat bounce anymore, in my opinion, but a fake rally. We have to see, but I'm still convinced that we are seeing a fake rally that will let us dump once again. And I still have the theory that afterwards we will see a big pump. Many guys are asking me what could be the top. I don't know. It depends on retails. It depends how the market absorbs all the tokens that whales are going to sell the way up. So I really can't say that. But I think we are still on track. Interesting was this case here where the weights ratio just dumped very hard. Actually, the last time that the weights ratio dumped in that way, that was in 2015. I mean, that's almost 7 years ago, and it didn't have the effect as expected. I thought maybe they have started a rally, a bull run or something. No. It was a dead cat bounce or something like a dead cat bounce as well. So it would match. We have to see. I'm not going to predict any levels at the moment because it's very. They surprised me. As you know, they wrecked me with my short. So I'm very trying to be very unbiased, to check the market price action and to figure out what's going on and just to see what could be the next trend, but it still feels not bullish enough in my opinion. We have to see. I will keep tracking the market and the weights ratio. But let us zoom in and let us take a look. For example, here, that's our weights ratio, the hourly time frame, where we can see what happened here again. Okay, so these guys have stopped to increase or to raise the sell pressure. They declined in sell pressure. We can see here that we had a little decline, and then we have started to lift up. In my opinion, that was actually the preparation of the incoming fake rally. Then we had another dump of the weights ratio, and then we have started to lift up while the weights ratio have started to rise, indicating the sell pressure is starting again. As we can see here, for example, that's our 30-hour average of the weights ratio. And also very interesting was my observations how the stablecoin reserves on exchanges just correlates with some price action moves. Anyway, we can see here again it dumped several times. We have started to lift up again. Then we have reached again our maximum, our top of the weights ratio, indicating that whales are selling tokens again, and it happened actually. We received some thousands of bitcoins on Binance, Gemini, and some other. I think FTX sent almost 3,000 bitcoin as well. I will show you that. And since then, they have stopped to increase the sell pressure. So, in my opinion, also here, okay, they have declined in Wales ratio, and the price has started to follow because they accumulated their tokens, their bitcoins, just the way up, and they can dump afterwards. That's what's happening right now. They are something like filling or loading their ammo gun. That's what they are doing. It's very interesting to observe that. I don't know what's happening with this curve here, because that's the circulating stable coins that we have. I mean, that's really insane because I didn't see that declining since month. It's just rising all the time. And you know that Tether is not printing since 6 weeks now, but the USD of Coinbase, the stable coin of Coinbase, is taking over, it seems. They are printing like crazy. Well, let us zoom in again and take a look what's happening here. That's our block view. Just to make clear, the block view, it's almost a time frame of 5 minutes. And actually, it's confirming what we have seen on the early time frame. But the interesting part is here, the yellow curve here. And that's our stablecoin reserves on the exchanges. And you can see it was declining from here. It was declining all the time. So we went up in price, and that was end of December. That was to Christmas, you remember. And then we have started this dump phase from December 27th, and then we reached our bottom. I still think the bottom is not in, but our bottom of 33K, January 24th. And the interesting thing, and what I missed, and I have explained that the last day, is they received a huge amount of stable coins, and then they started to create higher lows, indicating somebody is buying. But that's not really an accumulation schematic, and that was the problem. That looks like, well, a dead cat bounce, or like in summer they did that several times. Quick accumulation, okay, in that case almost without to generate big fear, and then, well, they pumped hard, indicating that's a fake rally with low volume, and as soon as they reach the top, they let it dump again, because these guys are distributing the way up what they have accumulated here. That's a quick accumulation that's not related to any accumulation schematic you can find. Okay, with higher lows, that's very strange, but that was quick. I guess that's just quick gain, quick money. So we have reached our local top at 44.8. We failed actually to break out, and we are starting to decline again. We can see here the yellow curve. That's our stablecoin reserves on exchanges, indicating here that we had some outflows of stablecoins. Okay, so confirming actually that they have starting to sell the way up. And as you can see here again, the curve is rising again. So I could expect that we will reach a level of maybe 41. We will talk about the levels, my potential local bottoms, and then we will lift up again, I guess. That looks like, at least. We can see here as well that the 30 block average wealth ratio has started to rise again while we went the way up, and now it's declining and it matches again. They have started to dump afterwards. So I think that's exactly the same correlation we will see on the 30 days average. In that case, that would confirm my theory. We are not done. We will see a bigger dump. We are not done yet. So that's the case with the wealth ratio. Let us just take a look, for example, here to the future trading. We can see our leverage ratio is very high. It maintains all-time high. Okay, that's this level. It's just amazing. On the other side, and that's the daily view, it's indicating here that while we went the way up, we have generated a bigger demand for shorts than for longs. That's indicating the funding rate. Okay, for the last 8 hours, the funding rate indicates the demand of the instruments. It depends of long or short. So it's positive. That means more longs in demand. It's negative. It means more shorts in demand. That's very important to know because, yeah, as you can see here, that's really, I mean, we are liquidating a lot of shorts all the time. Even now here, where we have started to dump hard, I would say we just liquidated more shorts than longs. It seems that long traders are living longer, unfortunately. Sometimes at least. Now let us take a look to the all view. We can see here, I don't know if you can see that very clear. I will just change the color or make it just a bit more. Yeah, that should be nice. That's the funding rate. Okay, and once again you can see people were very bearish here, expecting that was just a big pump related to Amazon, SPX, some stock. Good news. They got liquidated and then they have started to long. Okay, that's what's indicating here. They started to long, the demand for longs just rised really hard. And as you can see, they didn't really erect any longs. They started to erect some longs just today when we reached the local top and we have started to dump again. And we can see here that the expectations of traders, the sentiment just flipped from ultra bearish to, yeah, I would say that's bullish. Okay, these guys just flipped very quick to bullish to the sentiment. It looks like, at least. Even if you can see how often they demonstrated to be very bullish in different phases where we just dumped, actually, expecting the bottom is in, maybe. So let me show you that. Our curve here is indicating that the funding rate is now flipping or just rising a little bit, indicating that the demand for longs are rising again. The good news is the leverage ratio is just declining. So that means they are using less leverage for their future trading, and that's a good thing, actually, because otherwise they are very quick to liquidate. And that's nothing I like, actually. So let us go further. That's a new chart. Well, is that the new chart? Yeah, that is not the new chart. That's actually the chart where I have added some different indicators now. We have here the inflows, Bitcoin inflows in different exchanges. If we change to the only view, we can check here the biggest inflow was today on the top by FTX, showing, let me see, so we can see that 2,749 Bitcoin. And Binance have started to bring some Bitcoins also on the table, 3,000 Bitcoins. They have started to send some inflows directly on the top. That was FTX. They have started to sell. Then we reached our level of almost 43.9, and Binance sent or received much more Bitcoins afterwards, and since then we are just declining. So you can see here we received also 880 Bitcoins by Gemini. Well, that wasn't really big. That was Bitfinex. You can see Bitfinex is always very active, but not that big. And we have here almost another 700 Bitcoin by Gemini. And that's actually the last big inflow we received. I mean, big. And we have here in the local bottom what we reached now at 43K, another 1,000 Bitcoin by Binance. Then and I hope you can see that we have here 2 or 3 different curves. The orange one is just the price of Bitcoin. But we have a red one. The red one is the inflow of stable coins. Okay. And we have here another one that's a brown one, that's the outflow. For me, interesting, the outflow of stable coins would be an indicator they sell. They already sold their Bitcoin and cashed out in stablecoin. Like we know that from the past as well. The inflows are the opposite. A potential or an indicator indicating me a potential purchase operation coming. And we can see here that we received 3 hours ago almost 300 million US dollars in stable coins. And another 140 million are on the way. So it's going to be hard maybe actually to dump even more. I guess it's possible, but I'm not sure. I think we will have a retrace very soon. So let us take a look to the BTC OTC chart. That's the chart that is showing us. It takes a little bit to load. We have here the exchange activity. That's the general exchange activity. So accumulated all exchanges activities are showing here. We have the total transferred tokens, BTC tokens on the network. So if you see a gap between both, that means, for example, here, that means, well, I mean, when the exchange had some big activity, for example, it's not the case here. Of course, they send the tokens to their personal wallets, and they should appear here. But as soon as you see a big activity here and less activity on the exchanges, that's indicating a third party is taking some action here. And as you know, and I have mentioned that in different times in the past, that I have noticed exactly that. We can check here what happened. These guys, in my opinion, are buying, while the dump wasn't driven by a third party. That was driven by SECs, by centralized exchanges like, as said, FTX. Okay, so centralized again, SECs seems to be very bearish, but on the other side, I'm detecting more activity linked to bullish sentiment and price action, third party. But it doesn't match with the last report of Genesis. Genesis is the biggest OTC desk, and they said that the demand for Bitcoin just declined by almost 40% since January or Q1 2021. So it's not clear what's happening here. That's why I tweeted yesterday my theory about that Chinese who sold just their bitcoins and cashed out with Tether are not able now to convert this Tether in US dollars, for example, because many of you know the Tether problem and issue is Tether is not backed by one-to-one US dollars. It means as many banks just refused to work with Tether, it's for them maybe a big problem related to liquidity. And at the same time, Tether are blocking the release of their settlements, balances, and so on and so forth. So it's not looking very well what's happening with Tether. It's absolutely just a theory. It's just speculation, but it would match because Chinese, I have just studied a little bit how Chinese can prevent or can even with the crypto ban in China mainland keep trading. And they just founded private OTC desks. They can use this private OTC desk to keep buying crypto, and that would match to what I'm observing, but I don't have any proof, so don't care about this theory. Anyway, what we are detecting here, and that's not the first time, that third party just flipped to bullish, and it seems they are buying. But I don't know, who that is, unfortunately. So let us check the net flows. Miners are very interesting here as well to see if miners are making any sell-off or if they want to sell right now because they are scared. But as you can see, nothing happened. It is right, they have started here to sell a little bit. So it's better. Just the way up, but we are talking about an average volume of 400, 300 Bitcoin, 700 Bitcoin, so nothing big. That's not looking like a sell-off. We can check here, but I think that's that was actually our exchange inflows chart. We have the big exchanges where I have prepared here as well just a chart that is showing in the bottom. We have here in green, that's the stablecoin inflows, indicating that, well, as you can see, they are trying to buy, maybe to prevent a bigger dump. That's at least how it's looking like. We have the inflows, that's the orange curve, showing that the inflows are declining right now. Okay, and even the outflows are declining right now, the stablecoin outflows. However, the exchange reserves are rising. So that's not bearish at the moment. So I'm not really expecting at the moment, I'm not going to expect that we are going to crash to 33 just straight, you know. That's going to be something, they will maintain a price level at 42 and In my opinion, that's my prediction at the moment, we will reach 41.8 because we had a big volume there, or at least a demand, and I guess that was the problem here. We didn't have enough demand, so they are declining in price and they want to come back here to sell, and depends if they see, they will make a liquidity test, I guess, just to pump up a little bit to see and to feel if the demand keeps being there. If they see it's not there, they will they will decline again and dump. And that's the problem. It's always supply and demand. That's the key. We don't have any other baked rules. At least crypto is very free of any schematics. I mean, the last summer that was very clear a Wyckoff's accumulation schematic. Even if I have detected this schematic a little bit late, because the problem is the spring is confirming you actually the schematic then. And well, I don't see any schematic here at the moment. Okay, that's driven by price action, and that's really strange. So that's why I think we are going to see a bigger dump afterwards. Yeah, and actually that's the same chart indicating that was for the overview. That's very interesting just to see how the stable coins priced up, and well, afterwards the price followed, and that's happening again. You can see the stable coins reserves are rising, so they are going to buy. Well, then let us check what's happening with the option traders. And a fantastic news is that the max pain for the February 11th expiry just rised instead of declining. That's something very interesting for me, because that's at least a little bit bullish. It just went up to 40k. It was at 39k, but now it's at 40k. The volume, the Bitcoin volume by strike in the last 24 hours, it's not really looking bullish at the moment. It keeps being, even if we are switching or shifting much more to the upper prices, I mean, that's driven by the price action right now. But if we check here, for example, that's the BTC open interest by expiration, and we see that the February 11th expiry has more puts than calls. We have 356 million puts versus 351 million calls. That's not a big gap, but as you can see, that's uncommon. Usually you have more calls than puts, and in that case we have more puts. If we check here, we have the BTC volume by expiration of the last 24 hours. We have $62 million invested in calls options and 50 million in puts. And if we check the last BTC top traded instruments of the last 24 hours and we take a look, the biggest trade related to the next Friday expiry, we have puts at 43k. So these guys are expecting we will have a price action below, a price level below 43k. That's not that bullish. At least it's indicating these guys are expecting a price, bearish price action. They invested 20 million for these puts at 43k. You know that these guys did that last week, and their price prediction was very accurate. So we have to see. That would mean we will maintain a price below 43k. It's not that bearish, right? However, we keep maintaining a lot of puts and lower levels related to the February 11th options, and that's not that bullish. Usually they would try to sell, to buy, or just to overall to a different expiry. It's not happening at the moment. Not that big, at least. So, yeah, and as mentioned, just a confirmation to my future trading chart. You can see in the last 24 hours, we kept a bearish sentiment, indicating 50.52% of all future trading generated in the last 24 hours were shorts, while 49.48% were longs. It's not a big gap, of course it's not, but it's a little bit showing you that in the last 24 hours, people just maintain their bearish sentiment. If we zoom in, we see even more shorts than longs, 48.8 versus 51.2. And if we start to zoom in, it's it's stabilizing a little bit, 49.73. If we go back to 1 hour, we can see in the last 1 hour they placed more longs than shorts, just expecting, okay, we will go up again. So if we take a look here, for example, and that's a little bit what we have seen, just imagine we received these 350 million stable coins here. And as you can see what happened with the price, it's stabilized, and it's actually showing the first reversal indications. Okay, so I guess we will go up a little bit more to 43.6 maybe, and then just go down again, hitting I would say something here, 41.9 to 41.2. That would be my expectation for the next hours. So that's something we should have in mind. Actually, I'm shorting. I'm shorting since we have crossed the 44.3, because I thought it's not going to decline even more, but then I have just seen that they let them go down, because you can see here the volume, it's not really high. If you compare this volume with the volume we had just in lower ranges, as soon as they dumped, generating a big sell pressure, the volume rised a lot. It's not happening. So that means for me, they know, and that's fine for them, to let the price go down. And as I have showed last time, that's the entities, the different entities. I have to say we have here a 24-hour delay. Okay, so what we are seeing here is actually the last move of yesterday. We can see that the biggest, the market makers, have actually they have started to buy in a price range of 43K. Okay, at least we can see that they bought 40,000, actually 40,000 Bitcoin. Also, I have to be careful when I say they bought. At least they raised imbalances by 40,000 Bitcoin, because if an entity that was below 1,000 Bitcoin, for example 800 Bitcoin, and bought 200 more Bitcoin, he is shifting to the bigger entity, where I classified these guys as market makers, because their trading behavior is just insane. It's like they know exactly what's going to happen next, and that's indicating that these guys are doing and manipulating the market. So that's what's happening right now. While, and that's also very interesting, you can see here that the pink curve are entities with 101,000 bitcoins are really dumping. Okay, they had 4 million, 4.01 million, and have now 3,880,000 bitcoins. That's huge. But at least I know that these entities are not really related with exchanges. Exchanges, they use bigger entities. They would start with 10,000 to 100,000, but of course you have some little exchanges, or at least exchanges that have less Bitcoin reserves, like KuCoin, for example. They don't have big balances, so they will use some wallets related to this kind of entities. However, what we are seeing here, it's very interesting, and that's not bearish at all. But I have to say, if we check what these guys are doing, and I have explained that different times now, just because it looks like they are accumulating, it doesn't mean that we are going to make the next bull run. Because that's what they did in several times, as you can see. That's an accumulation. And we should then maybe bounce here at the moment. We have to see, but that would match at least. If we take a look to Binance, we see here we have a peak of 247 Bitcoin. If we reduce that to, let us make 200 Bitcoin, just to make the walls a little bit more clear, but it doesn't feel like a wall anymore. I mean, we have a wall here at 40K. They have placed 177 Bitcoin walls at 41.8, and someone is waiting at 45K with 183 Bitcoins. Actually, also very interesting, they really limited the way up. So that's why I was expecting that it could fail here, but I wasn't really sure after the last surprise. And but well, it happened. So they tried. Binance has just created these three walls, and they failed here the retest, and we have started to decline in price. And as you can see, we are recovering a little bit. I would say this will end in a bull trap, or we will flip back at 43.4. But we have to check here. Let us check, well, Binance. So here, very interesting. We have here a peak of 150 Bitcoins at the moment. If we reduce that to 100 Bitcoin, okay, that's not that much, but to make that clear what's happening here, you can see they just have this wall at 22.2. I don't know why they have this order. Maybe expecting, in case of we have a flash crash, to fill these orders. That's possible. Sometimes you know that happens. Binance US, we had for a few minutes Bitcoin price of $8,000. So sometimes if you have an order there for 10,000, you did a big deal. And at the moment, I don't see here something big. I just see that these guys are trying to limit, or at least to sell Bitcoins in upper levels. Okay, that would be my indication for that. And yeah, of course, that's usual for Bitfinex. Flashing orders. That's not spoofing. They are not using any algos. That's just coincidence. Okay, and we can check FTX, for example. Also very interesting what FTX is doing after we know that these guys were limiting at 45K and they received, and that was very interesting also. They had a big wall at 48K, so it seems I don't know, but sometimes that feels really like they expecting something. They try to limiting some ways, but that was here enough because Binance had this wall here, Coinbase had here the wall, FTX had this wall at 45K, so the buy pressure wasn't that big anymore. They tried once, okay, they absorbed some, but they replaced the wall very quick with 400 Bitcoin, and then they failed, and since then we have started to decline. We have here a little wall of 144 Bitcoin at 44.3, 440 Bitcoin waiting at 44, and the same here, 400 Bitcoin at 42.6. Means, in other words, they won't maintain this price range at the moment, but we have a wall here, we have a wall here, they have a wider price range in case of. However, and that's the most interesting point in all that, they didn't remove all the walls. So they are expecting something. Well, we have OKEX, but what should I say? It's not big, but we know that OKEX doesn't have really a big volume either, so they are limiting the way down. And yeah, it worked very well, as you can see. And the same with Kraken, also here at 47K, indicating they don't want to let it go above a 47K. As I have showed, we have different exchanges indicating that. And on the other side, we have here a little wall at 40K.